Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
Today we're going to do an experiment. We're going to try something we've never tried before, and hopefully if it works, we're going to do this a lot. Today we are going to do a movie commentary podcast.
That's right, something new. Not heroin, but a movie commentary podcast.
Were you hoping we would try heroin, and then if we really liked it, we'd do it lots of times on the podcast, Vince?
You know, I was
not the most family-friendly thing you've ever said, is it?
Probably not. That's true. But the movie we're about to watch is not entirely family-friendly.
Well, I don't know. It's close enough. So today we're going to be doing a podcast while watching Batman from 1999. And when I say we're going to be doing a podcast while watching it, I say it that way as opposed to calling it just a straight commentary, because it's not going to be like a Mystery Science kind of thing where you have to be watching the movie while we're talking. The idea is we're using the movie to, while we're watching it, to just springboard conversation about the film and anything else that happens to come to our mind. So if you're the kind of person that likes to listen to our podcast while with your iPod or in your car or something like that, we're going to try to do this in such a way where we're providing enough context for what we're talking about that you can still listen to it even if you're not watching the movie. But we're also going to tell you when to press play on your DVD menu so that you can also watch it with us if you want to while we're talking. So it will serve a double purpose. It'll be a commentary and a podcast. That's what we're doing. So Vince, you ready to watch the film?
Yeah, it'll be a pod commentary. You know, I think this will be like a slippery slope, you know. First you're starting watching Batman, and then suddenly, you know, there's Returns and Forever, and then and then you'll find yourself in the slums with Robin somewhere.
All right, well, on that note,
go to rehab and begin again.
Is there any possible way that we can during the commentary get this away from drugs? Is it possible?
I think up until the point that they get to the chemical stuff.
Oh, good point. Chances are you bought it already. All right, so if you want to listen or watch the movie while you're listening to us, then I want you to hit the play movie button on your menu. Hopefully it works the same way with the Blu-ray as the DVD. Right now.
Now!
Here we go.
You know, one thing I miss about the Warner Brothers like DVDs and things is that they don't have that cartoon right at the beginning.
I know, me too. Actually, that and the Diet Coke commercial.
Yeah, you know, I remember being a kid and looking at the Batman movie that we had on DVD, and it always started with the with the Looney Tunes. And I don't know, it's not necessary. It's not something that wholly has to be on the DVD.
My wife and I seem to bring that up every time we watch this, and I had the same thing with the Ninja Turtles movie too.
Yeah,
with the baseball commercial from Pizza Hut.
Yeah, that
and I'm playing right field.
Yeah, that actually, my mom was getting ready to get rid of some of her old VHS tapes, and she's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Give me the Turtles." And Victor, being my brother, said, "Oh man, I really wanted those commercials."
Batman '89 and the Ninja Turtles movie are the two big ones for me that I will never give up the VHSs just because of that. And of course, you know, you can go watch those commercials on YouTube or whatever, but it's not the same. I want to see those. And are you? Well, the thing is, this didn't have a cartoon, but it had a Bugs Bunny commercial.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right, just for people that haven't seen that. Because, I mean, you gotta about be our age to even know what we're talking about with those, right? Because they didn't put them on any of the DVDs that I know of.
The ripe old age of 26 and 27.
Well, but I'm just saying, we've got a lot of teenagers that know these movies and probably never saw those.
Yeah.
That always cracked me up. You can't watch a Warner Brothers movie without a Warner Brothers ball cap.
I'll be honest with you, I forgot what it was. It's been so long since I've seen it. I just miss it. Like every time I watch it.
It's a commercial for buying Warner Brothers stuff through the telephone, is what it is.
Oh, I like telephones. It allows me to communicate with people that are not in my immediate vicinity.
I wonder when people were originally watching this opening sequence, how long it took for them to figure out what they were looking at. You know, with the spinning bat symbol that finally comes out.
Just a rat caught in a maze, just wandering around.
What are you looking at? I always thought it was a really neat image. It has nothing to do with anything, but it's a cool image.
A concrete bat symbol. Well, I don't mean solid bats. I mean, it looks like concrete to me.
And the first time you and I ever watched this movie together, and we were talking through it because we have a tendency to do that, talking through movies. That's why I wanted to record this, by the way, because this is pretty much just what me and Vince do anyway, except we're not usually listening to it through, you know, 2 sets of headphones. But I remember the first time we ever watched this, and we were looking at the opening credits, and Vince went, Michael, go!
Michael, go! What is Robert Wool? Wool?
I always thought this was kind of a neat bit of misdirection here at the beginning with this family that's walking around trying to get a taxi.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I thought, oh, that must be the Wayans.
You know, every time I watch this movie, I always go, I don't remember it starting here. And then it happens the way it does, and I say, oh, yeah. I've seen this movie. Why do I never remember that? I never remember the opening. I only remember everything post-Batman entering.
I've seen this movie probably 150 times, so I always remember this because I remember the whole movie. I have probably most of this memorized, really.
As it turns out, that's a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, it was my dad's favorite movie, and so he and I watched it a lot. And he always says that he and his and a friend of his that ran a restaurant together when I was a kid used to watch this when they'd get drunk and watch Batman. That's what they did after work.
That's funny.
Apparently, they did that every day for a couple months.
That
they went home, watched Batman, and got drunk. That might explain some things about my dad. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. My dad's awesome. My dad wants to be on the channel at some point, by the way. We've been talking about it. Yeah.
Well, there was even talk at one point that your dad would do a review show of...
That's right.
...of eateries in Kansas.
He's been wanting to do a show called Eating Kansas. My dad, if for those of you that haven't heard me talk about Dad before, he was a restaurant manager for a number of years, and he runs a deli now. And he knows a lot about restaurants and stuff, and he's been wanting to do a show.
I love the obvious animation right there. Just to bring it back to Batman real quick, because I want to say they pan out to where he's at the top of a building and he turns and his cape flails a little bit, and it's so obviously animated, but I don't care.
Yeah, because it helps make it a little more comic booky.
Yeah, I mean
it probably wouldn't have looked as good if it was live action, just because they would have had to have added all that extra stuff around it in post, and I'm not sure it would have looked as good.
Yeah.
And that looked a little better in '89 than it looks now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think people get a little jaded as to what actually exists, and they're like, oh, well, we can do so much more than that now, so why should I watch some of these things that were more practically done or more simplistically done back in the past?
You also have a lot of people who, unfortunately, will compare old things to new things without even considering the fact that one came before the other one.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, I think it's an okay thing to do, depending on what the source material is, saying that, I'm going to compare this to this. This has good attributes, that has bad attributes. I mean, I said that wrong. But
I know what you mean, though.
Realizing that things came out when they did. Like, for example, the one that always gets my goat is Dawn of the Dead. And when I talk to people that talk about the remake of it versus the old one, they say, well, the old one, they were just blue. I'm like, they had a lower budget.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to have a mall to shoot in. What did you think was going to happen?
But it's a little different when you're comparing a remake to the movie that's kind of the same thing that came before it versus comparing Batman to like the other Batman or another Batman.
Yeah.
You know you'll have people that will but with remakes, that's not to say that just because a movie gets remade, the original is not worth anything.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the times it's the reverse, right?
Yeah.
But what's the movie we always go to? The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I still haven't seen the remake, and I kind of refuse.
Yeah, don't. Because I had more brain cells back then. I'm positive of it.
Are you sure?
It's a terrible movie. No, I mean before that.
When the Day the Earth Stood Still came out, old Cap was going, "I'm going to go see it. No, I think it's going to be good." And I'm like, "It's not going to be good. Don't do it to yourself." And he came home just like entirely brokenhearted.
By the way, I should mention I saw Billy D. Williams at Comic-Con this weekend. Comic-Con, he was there.
How was that? I didn't actually.
He's Harvey Dent in this movie, and he was there. Well, the thing is, I didn't get up real close to him and talk with him because, of course, there's a huge line and stuff. And Sarah and I and Jason went in to listen to him talk, but the room was like the worst acoustics ever, and we were way back in the back because we just showed up when he was about to take stage, and you couldn't hear him. You couldn't even begin to. So after about 5 minutes, we left and went and looked at a dealer booths and stuff.
I'm sorry, did he have a mic or anything?
Yeah, he was micing, but it was a giant room, and it was just the acoustics were really bad. So they didn't mic it right.
That stinks.
And they didn't turn his mic up high enough, and he's pretty soft spoken. And I'm not describing this room. There's a skylight. It's very long. It's you know what I mean. It's a flat ceiling. There's no good kind of, well, it's not flat because it's a skylight, but I mean you didn't have any kind of acoustics in this room, and it was packed with people. So it was packed wall to wall with people.
When I had a chance to see Peter Mayhew talk or hear him talk, it was in an auditorium. Peter Mayhew being Chewbacca,
yeah. I saw him once too.
Yeah, he's kind of a neat guy.
And very tall.
He's extremely tall. And I met him the same day that I met the guy that was in the robot in Lost in Space. So
cool.
I would talk to one guy, and then I would talk to the other, and I would get a nosebleed when I tried to switch my head to the difference. But it was an interesting day, but I didn't have that problem. He just went up, leaned against the stage, and just started talking. No mic or anything. That's what theaters are good for.
There's something with this movie I'd like to go ahead and cover right now for the folks that might be tuning in to hope that I'll talk about this. I want to do this early. When I reviewed Batman '89 on Rewind, I was a bit of a raging fanboy about it, and I hate that I was like that. And I thought I was being very objective about it because I didn't rate it a 4, because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And but I certainly didn't give it enough of an objective look, because and we'll get there when we get there. But the third act of this movie really kind of falls apart at the seams narratively, and I was always blinded by my love of it, And so people ask me all the time, if you were going to go back and re-review that movie, what would you rate it? And I would go from a 3.5 to a 3. I think. I don't think it was a 3.5. I think it should have been a 3, and I don't think that was quite right of me. So I wanted to throw that out. But Vince, what I wanted to talk about is. You and I both really like this, and we really like Begins and Dark Knight, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Whether you like one over the other, you still really like this movie.
Yeah.
Regardless of Begins and Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So what do we say to the folks who have it one way or another, where Batman '89 is genius and Begins and Dark Knight are not the Batman they want, so they think they're awful, or the people who go in the other direction don't like this movie because they were looking for a realistic Batman and then they finally got it, so this is now moot. I hear equally both of those comments all the time back and forth between these movies, and I'm inundated with these comments, and I think we should probably talk about it.
Yeah. Before we do that, I'd just like to say that they just put this guy in this ambulance, and it's a victim of the Batman. So Batman just hurt a guy. Like, it's not like he just showed up and said, tell me where the drugs are, and then dropped him and prevented him from having any real damage done to him. He legitimately hurt a man, and we don't know exactly as to what he did, so it makes it all the scarier. So that's what makes Batman interesting, I think.
You mean in this? Like, yeah, he's almost a horror figure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mystery to it, and I'm going to use that to segue into your question.
Thank you.
One of the things that I always hear people say about the original Batman, the '89 Batman versus Batman Begins, is there's more mystery to him, and they don't like their Batman being spelled out 100%, which I don't think that's fair, because it's a different movie, it's a different intent. We can have a Batman that is mysterious, and we can also have a Batman whose motives are more 100% explained. I mean, I think it's okay to do. I take issue with people who say that Nolan's Batman not mysterious enough, and I take issue with people who say that because this movie has because the '89 movie has a significantly different intent, that it's not as good as the new one. I mean, you can have complicated characters, both knowing everything and knowing very little.
Yeah, it's just about a taste issue, right?
Yeah.
Where some folks want a more stylistic Batman, like what we got here, and some people want something more realistic, like what we've got with Begins and Dark Knight. And I don't think that either of them is more or less valid than the other. Having said that, I do think that Begins and Dark Knight are better made movies than this, at least from the script level.
Yeah. I mean,
as far as storytelling goes, there's some inconsistencies in this movie that the Nolan films don't have.
Yeah, I might be willing to go out on a limb and say that Batman Begins and Dark Knight, that they're better movies.
Yeah, and that's not to say that a person should like them more or less than this film. I just think that as far as storytelling goes, they're better movies. I believe that's right.
And I think it's fair to like one more than the other. I mean, especially, for people who didn't grow up with '89 Batman, although why wouldn't you? But for people who didn't grow up with '89 Batman...
It was too dark and their parents wouldn't let them watch it.
Yeah. For those people, I understand why they have an affinity for Begins and really don't care for the other one, but I think it's indicative of a lack of objectivity. To say that this movie, '89 Batman, has no redeeming value because Begins was a good movie.
Yeah, I never heard people ragging on this film until Begins got made. Never heard it.
We're not saying that you can't have issues with '89 Batman.
Not at all. I just think that it changed people's perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that also speaks to how good that movie is.
Yeah.
I really do. And again, I understand that there are going to be people listening who don't like the Nolan films because they prefer this. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, I think that the fact that people had more issues with this after Nolan is a testament to how good Begins and Dark Knight are.
I think people get obsessed with the now. I think people get obsessed with whatever it is, right? Like, for example, I had a friend that... he and I were completely politically different, and I was saying something to another friend about that guy who's just so radically different than me, and he says, maybe he's just whatever book he is reading now. And
that's interesting.
And I never heard anybody say that to me before. I was like, that's real. I've never thought of it. So I think sometimes people say, well, this is the quintessential Batman. Nolan is the quintessential Batman, and Nolan is the quintessential Joker. Not necessarily. I mean, I think people just get,
especially because I don't think he looks that good in that makeup. That's all I'm saying. I don't think Nolan looks all that great in the Joker makeup. And I'm kidding.
Yeah, I was thinking about making that joke, but then I was like, I'm already kind of train rolling over that one. Anyway, but I think that people often, the general community is kind of inundated with whichever thing is good at the moment. Mm-hmm. And if it's new, it's better than what came before. So we might get a Batman in the future that's a little more mysterious, because surely we'll have another Batman movie that's not in the Nolan-verse.
Oh, yeah, definitely we will.
That will be different than the Nolan-verse Batman, and maybe it'll be more mysterious. Maybe it'll be a little more like Tim Burton's Batman. And then we can say, oh, look, people were saying the same thing about Nolan's Batman.
Sure, yeah,
Which,
exactly.
Of course, that's not going to stop anybody from saying that Nolan's Batman's better than the next Batman.
And like I've always said, I like there being different versions of this character. I think that's one of the reasons that Batman endures, is that you can do a lot of different things with him, and you can take the core of that character and change everything else about him, as long as he has particular core things about him. Like as far as what the tone of the thing is, you can play that all day long. Mm-hmm. And that's what's fun about it, and that's why I can enjoy this, and then I can enjoy Nolan. Now I feel like Nolan makes me think more, but that's what it's trying to do. This is purely an entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. It's escapism, Nolan makes me think about real stuff. This just takes me out of my world for a while, and I love it for that. That's what I love it for. By the way, Jack Palance, so good in this.
Jack Palance, he's hard not to like in a lot of things. A lot of these older actors are people that just grab you and pull you in. I mean, the line, "You I'm a number one.
And then I love that Jack Nicholson gets to make fun of Jack Palance later. That's good stuff. I don't know if you've ever listened.
Jack.
I don't know if you ever listened to the commentary by Tim Burton on this movie, but he and Jack Palance didn't get along.
Yeah.
And Jack, I mean, Tim Burton hadn't made very many movies yet, and he was really intimidated by Jack Palance. And he would try to give Jack Palance direction, and Jack Palance would say, "How many movies have you made, and how many movies have I made?" Like, he was like that on the set.
That makes Jack Palance a jerk.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I still think he's great in this, but...
That's the thing, is that I'm not one of these people that my life gets ruined if an actor I like turns out to be a jerk. I'm like, I don't care if Alec Baldwin's a jerk. I still enjoy the episodes of 30 Rock that I've seen, and I still like The Shadow.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't care if Michael Dorn was mean to me once at a convention. Worf is still hilarious.
Anybody's hilarious whose weakness is a barrel.
That's a good point. Yeah. Do you think it's weird that Bruce Wayne is so weird in this scene? Explain to me why. And I'm sorry for the people that aren't actually watching the movie right now. We're at the place where
there's a party in his mansion.
The party at the mansion, and she's Vicky Vale comes up and asks Bruce Wayne where Bruce Wayne is, and he says, "Well, I'm not sure," and she walks off. Why does he do that? Why is he pretending like he's not Bruce Wayne? Explain to me the motivation for that.
I think maybe the idea is that Vicky Vale is such a ravishing beauty that he's supposed to just be taken by her, like, let me figure out how to play my cards, and he's playing his mysterious cards. Like, look, he's Batman, he's entirely effective, and he just about set his glass on half a surface. And Michael, he saves it. He's like, he's setting his glass on something that it shouldn't be set on. I will take it because I'm the butler. But
doesn't that automatically make him a little too vulnerable as a superhero, though?
Maybe, but then again, maybe that was intentional. I mean, I wonder if maybe it's supposed to be funny and we're just supposed to accept it as a part of reality.
I think so too. Yeah. I think it's a throwaway gag. We're not even supposed to think about the character, and who he is there. I think it's just, but that's our introduction to him, so it bothers me a little bit.
Maybe that is a bothersome thing there, because one of the big theories, that's not the word I want. One of the big worries that people had when this movie was coming out was, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that, oh my goodness, Michael Keaton was a comedian and not an action film.
And nearly everything he'd done was comedies.
And in fact, when we were trying to figure out how to get this thing set up, I was like, Michael Keaton, who's that? I was like, wasn't he the guy from Beetlejuice? No, he was Mr. Mom.
Wait, he was Mr. Mom.
Yeah, that's the guy.
What was that other movie that he was in where he played a guy from like a mob boss from the 30s?
Oh, Johnny Dangerously.
Johnny Dangerously, yeah.
Which I own, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen it. The theme song is by Weird Al. It's a great theme song.
I don't know. I really like Michael Keaton as a comedian, but my first real introduction to Michael Keaton, realizing who he was Batman.
Wasn't.
So when I see him in comedies, I'm like, that's weird. And
that's interesting that the general populace had the other direction, where they're like, I just can't see him in a serious role.
Yeah, and then people saw this movie and didn't have a problem with it. People largely came to accept him, but really it's not so much Bruce Wayne the movie as it is Joker the movie, so...
yeah, that's true.
I think people...
and it's done that way on purpose.
I just laughed because he goes, this guy must be king of the wicker people.
Yeah. Robert Wool. It's Japanese. How do you know? Because I bought it in Japan. Who are you? Bruce Wayne? Yeah, are you sure? Yeah, this time. Sorry, I know this movie like the back of my hand. Let me ask you the obvious question, Vince. Since we're watching this, I guess we should do this. But prior to Christian Bale, during the first four, who do you think is the better Batman and who's the better Bruce Wayne?
Prior to Christian Bale?
Yeah. Just in the Batman through Batman and Robin. Who's the best Batman and who's the best Bruce Wayne in the live action films?
I'll say that I really...
Everybody has a different opinion.
Yeah, I always thought Keaton was a better Batman. And I always thought... I always thought,
Kilmer?
Kilmer. I was like, Christian, no.
It's like, well, there's no way he's going to say George Clooney, so
and
Kilmer.
Val Kilmer was a good Bruce Wayne. And, I mean, if you could find a way to reconcile the difference between the two, you could have one heck of a Batman. I still
think Kilmer looked fine in the costume.
Yeah,
and I've
Kilmer
always
looked
thought
fine
that.
in the costume. I don't have a problem with Kilmer in the costume. I just think that Kilmer was less of a intense-looking Batman than. I
think part of that's because of the change in the suit that he wore, but yeah.
There's that. I think Clooney could have made a decent Bruce Wayne. I'm not convinced that Clooney could have made a decent Batman ever.
It's hard to know given the material that he had, but yeah, you're right. I think Clooney looks more like comic book Bruce Wayne than anybody who played him.
Keaton,
like maybe.
In my head, Keaton kind of looks like Bruce Wayne, mainly because of the eyebrows and that stare that he has.
Yeah, sure.
But
I think my problem is from when I was a kid, that was who I saw as Bruce Wayne, because this was kind of my big foray into Batman. I mean, like, I watched all the other stuff too. I watched the 60s Batman at the same time as I watched this, at the same time as I watched the animated series. Although naturally I saw this before animated series because I was like 5 or 6 when this came out and I saw it. But but what I was going to say is I had an action figure of Bruce Wayne that you could make Batman, and it was Michael Keaton. So I always saw Bruce Wayne as Michael Keaton.
Yeah. I think if you just look at him, look at a picture still, a photo still of Michael Keaton, he looks like Bruce Wayne. I think he does.
Bruce Wayne has really, really high-tech equipment in his Batcave. He can take surveillance and rewind it. It's amazing.
What's funny to me is that apparently Bruce Wayne is nearsighted. He's wearing glasses.
Yeah, I always thought that was strange that he had to wear glasses, and you don't get a sense that there's anything built into his cowl like you have with other versions of Batman. So you wonder what happens when Batman has to read something. I guess it's a good thing that he doesn't have to be that much of a detective in this, right?
Batman's driving through Gotham, and he's like, if we have to stop at every "Stop Yelled in One Bay" sign, we're never going to get to the Joker.
I think it's really interesting just how much things have changed since 1989, and how his setup in the Batcave felt so high-tech back then. And, like, I can build that now pretty easily, you know what I mean?
Now he feels like a guy in his closet. Like, nobody come in here, I'm in the Batcave.
Do you find yourself really wondering what the Batcave is going to look like in Dark Knight Rises?
Not really, actually. It hasn't even crossed my mind.
Well, the reason I keep thinking about it is because the mansion still wasn't built yet during Dark Knight, and I remember when they were in the Bat Bunker and everything, thinking, when they do the third one, they are going to have one souped-up Batcave. They're going to have to before this franchise is over. And I'm really curious, because it's been a really long time since we've had a live-action Batcave, and I'm really curious to see what they do with it. I mean, obviously we have one in Begins, but I mean a live-action Batcave where they have the monitors and everything everywhere, and yeah. I'm very curious to see what they do with it.
I had some vandals once bat up my soup cave. Soup up my Batcave. Stupid joke!
Are you going to turn into Rorschach? Stupid, stupid, stupid!
No, I really think it's fine like this.
Fine like this. How do you feel about Gordon in these films? The 300-pound Gordon.
It's strange to me is that whenever I watch this movie, I have to remind myself that that's Gordon.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because I always think of Gordon as, Gordon from the comics. I mean, I find myself wondering because I never remember what Gordon looked like in the Adam West series. Was that guy anything like this one?
A little bit. He's a little heavy set.
See,
he certainly didn't look like comic book Gordon.
That's the thing is that.
But I think older comic book Gordon, there were different looks for him. Like we have a very definitive Gordon these days. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, especially now that we have.
They've always had a mustache, but that's about it.
There are things about. Wow. There are things about this Batman that. He's very Dracula-like at times. He just descends. Mm-hmm. He doesn't necessarily have to be the agile Batman that we have in our Begins films and things like that, or even the animated series, really. This guy's more just...
Yeah, and he's very deliberate in how he walks and everything. He's got one speed.
Yeah.
Like, if he's chasing somebody, he's going to walk.
Keaton Batman is the slasher of Batman films.
Oh yeah, if he went crazy and he wanted to become a bad guy, he'd be a slasher villain. Like that's what he'd be. You're right.
Yeah. And they would call him the Batman.
Oh,
and he would kill people with awfulness.
Oh, the Batman. Really, it all comes back to the Batman, doesn't it?
That's right.
There is a place in... Where is it? I'm trying to remember where I was when I saw it. When I was a kid, we used to go to Memphis. That's where it was. Every now and again, we would go to Tunica, Mississippi, and we would drive through Memphis. And Memphis has a power plant that looks identical to Axis Chemicals at night.
Oh yeah.
When you drive by it, it looks like Axis Chemicals, and I used to anytime we would drive through there, if it was late at night, I had a tendency when I was a kid to sleep in cars a lot, but I always make sure I was awake so I could see Axis Chemicals, and we would always call it that. And in fact, Dad would wake me up. He'd be like Captain Logan, because my dad called me Captain Logan. He'd say wake up, it's Axis Chemicals. I love this bat suit. I will always love this bat suit.
Me too. I don't care if his neck doesn't move. It's a great look.
Well, it makes him Dracula. That's the thing that makes him Dracula-like, or one of the things.
He's very stiff. Like he can still move his neck. He can
a little bit, sure. But he can't go all the way over, like.
There are moments in this movie that are very cartoon-like.
In what way?
They just did a double take. Napier and Batman, while face to face, Batman was holding Napier by his lapels. They both did a double take over to the yelling cops. They both went, look back at each other, look again, look back at each other.
I just noticed something with the suit a second ago that I'd never noticed before. There are two small holes under the nose part of it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I never caught that before. Hey, Vince, think about the future.
That's why I'm in school.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thinking about the future.
I always like Eckhart. I always thought that was a neat part.
Always like what? Oh, that part. I thought you said Eckhart. I'm like, wrong movie.
No, I didn't say Eckhart. Lieutenant Eckhart.
Oh.
That's the name of that character. That Jack shoots right there. Yeah, Eckhart. Different Eckhart. I actually made that joke once in one of our videos. Eckhart versus the actor Eckhart. But yes, that's his name, Lieutenant Eckhart.
In my head, that's always Harvey Bullock. I never even pay attention to his name.
Well, it's a good thing that it's not Harvey Bullock, right? Because he's a dirty cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the big dirty cop in this. You wouldn't want that to be Bullock.
I don't necessarily have a problem with... the sanctity of the characters is not something that bothers me. I just kind of think he's physically similar to Bullock.
I doubt he's even kind of based on him, though, for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is 89. Bullock wasn't that big of a character until the 90s. He was around, but I think that the general public didn't really know him that well. And given the fact that they didn't even care to make Gordon look like Gordon, I doubt they were thinking Bullock when they wrote Bullock.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've heard other people say that with Eckhart. That is a stretch to say that they would even be trying to make a Bullock look alike when they didn't even make Gordon look right. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what they tried to do. It's what's in my head when I see it.
Well, fair enough. But you have to admit that you're largely influenced by things that came after this.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying that this has to be reality just because that's the way it feels.
Does Knox irritate you? Knox irritates a lot of people.
It depends. Like, some of the things he says I find irritating, but largely I don't have a problem with him. And that's because I like Robert Wuhl as a comedian, as an actor. And
was he in very much aside from this? Because I've never seen anything else he was ever in.
One of the things that I love from Robert Wuhl is...
we'll get you a speech therapist after this. It's okay.
Assume the position. He does this...
By the way, can I pause you for a second? Yeah. I think Vicky Vale's really cute in that hat. Anyway, go ahead. That white hat she wears in that scene right after the Joker falls in the thing. Okay, go ahead and say what you're going to say, because I want to make fun of this table.
It's a good looking hat. But assume the position is he assumes the position of a teacher, really, and he goes into a college class. I forgot about the giant table.
Tim Burton has a tendency to put characters... This is one of the things I don't like about him. He has a tendency to put characters in a situation, and I find myself thinking the entire scene, how did they possibly get in this situation? You know what I mean? Where like the situation itself is very funny, and I think this is a really well written scene. But at the same time, I find myself go, okay, I'm imagining them walking into this room, and their place settings being at opposite ends of this really long table, and they both just sit there and are okay with this and start eating. You know what I mean? Like you cannot write the scene that gets them here. It doesn't. There's no way. Like, what was Alfred thinking?
Alfred was thinking that he really doesn't need a woman in his life.
Like, I love Michael Gough, and Alfred does do some cool stuff in this, but, like, he makes a lot of strange choices. Let's put them both at opposite ends of the table. Let's just show Vicky Vale the Batcave. He makes a lot of really strange choices.
You know, what I find interesting about this scene is that I kind of feel like they're supposed to be playing on the idea that these are two people that are sort of trying to adhere to social mores and things of rich people. And,
okay, sure.
And Bruce Wayne is not necessarily that guy.
And he's not good at it, yeah.
And I feel kind of like that's one of the reasons why they cast Michael Keaton, is he's supposed to be more like a down-to-earth type of Bruce Wayne when he's trying to fit this lifestyle,
where he inherited all this, but it's not really him at the core.
Yeah, so that's why we have Bruce Wayne who says, "I'm not sure who he is," and then he says, "Hey, yeah, I bought that."
You think maybe part of the idea is that some of why he goes out and he's Batman is because he wants to get his hands dirty doing something. He doesn't want to just be the rich guy who doesn't have to work for a living.
You know, I never thought that.
And me neither until just now after you said that. But like maybe that plays into it a little bit.
I wonder if Bruce Wayne isn't the white collar guy that sort of wishes he had the blue collar life.
At least to a point where he feels like, you know, sure, he can and this is not mentioned anywhere in the movie, so we're shooting at the wind here. Let me just say that. But like maybe part of the idea is like, okay, Bruce Wayne's really rich. He could just throw money at problems and help solve things that way. And of course, on the grand scheme, really rich people giving really poor people money is probably a lot more helpful than anything you or I could just go out and do. As far as largely, you know what I mean? When you're really trying to objectively look at things, if I had $1 billion, I could help a lot more people than I could just going out and helping at a soup kitchen or being a superhero and saving people in an alleyway. But at the same time, people want that personal touch. You know, that's why people when they get superpowers want to go be superheroes, or even in not like real people, because it doesn't happen. But like in
the last time I knew a guy that got superpowers,
and that's why people like this feel compelled to go help people. It's not just that his parents got killed. At least in this particular case, it's not just that his parents got killed and he feels like he has to avenge them. I think maybe with him, part of it is he feels so disconnected from people. He has to go out and do something.
This scene is terrific. This is the scene, for those of you not watching, that
Joker's getting his surgery and seeing his new face for the first time.
Like, if anybody's ever watched Punisher Warzone and thought, that scene was silly, this is how they do it right.
Thank you, yeah. Well, the first thing is the doctor doesn't throw up.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the doctor that threw up.
No, I just mean that the other person in the room with him doesn't throw up.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Look what I have to work with here.
I had a corkscrew and a hammer.
I like that our first, whether you like how Jack plays this character or not, whether you think that he's not enough different between the two, because that's the big criticism people give for Jack a lot, is that he's not enough of a different character when he turns into the Joker, that he was already psychotic, and that this just makes him, just gives him a face to go with his already psychoticness. Whether you like that or not, I do like the idea that our introduction to him as the Joker, we don't get to see his face yet, we just hear his laugh.
Yeah.
That's the big iconic thing about the Joker, is that you can have the Joker without the face. It's the laugh that really makes the character in the first place. And I really like that.
And you know, that's the thing, is that I think it makes sense to do what they did with Jack Nicholson Joker. You have a guy who is legitimately cruel and part of organized crime, so therefore he has a penchant for setting up plans and executing plans because he's been part of organized crime. And then you have a guy here who gets this disfigurement, and he gets a derangement, and now he's the Joker, not because he's a different person, but because the Joker's been all he needed was a giggle. All he needed was something to make him think these things are funny, as opposed to just part of business.
Yeah, because the Jack Napier character is a lot more reserved. Like there's that. He never would have come right out and opposed Grissom before.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is certainly a change in the character, and you could say, well, now that he's been all messed up, he's just coming for revenge, and so then of course he comes right out. But I mean, like, what's really been done to him other than his face looks different?
I think he takes more risks. I think he's more of a... I don't know. I find it hard to really say that nothing's different other than his face. Because...
okay.
Even Heath Ledger Joker has his moments...
Oh, I just mean as far... Well, when I said that, I just meant as far as, like, what Jack Palance's character has done to him. You know what I'm saying? Like from the perspective of him wanting revenge, like, what has Jack Palance's character done to him other than his face looks different?
I'd say that's a good enough reason.
Other than he tried, he tried to kill him. There's that. But
yeah.
But his full face reveal is really quite great. I like that he's played in shadow for a while. What they did recently with Red Skull reminded me a little bit of this, where they kept making you wait to see him in the Captain America movie.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? I really appreciate that with a villain like this, where we comic book fans know kind of what he's going to look like, and probably have already seen posters and stuff like that, especially in our internet age. But it's still fun to have to wait to see him.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool is even the camera angle tells you this is an epic reveal. I mean, you go from the lower position and you look up at the guy and you think, oh, here's a guy who's sort of a godly figure, or maybe a fearsome figure, and that's what's cool about the Joker reveal for me. I mean, yeah, residing in the shadows and then whoosh into frame.
We're coming up on one of the goofiest ideas ever in anything, which is Batman sleeps upside down. I'm sorry, but you cannot reconcile this. It's just dumb. What do you think?
Oh, he's trying to get into the character. He's trying to get into the mind of the Bat.
Does he have to do that every night? Like, is he so compulsive that he's like, I'm going to risk somebody finding out my identity just because I have to sleep upside down? You know what I mean? Like, after a while, if she spends enough time with him, I think she can put two and two together. Maybe the weirdo rich guy who sleeps upside down with his arms like a bat, maybe he's Batman.
I didn't realize he was sleeping in that scene. I thought he was... Because there are people that put those hooks on their heels and hang. I mean, it's like trying to correct your back. And you can also do sit-ups and things in that position.
You're stretching. I think he's clearly sleeping in that scene. I mean, it's late at night. Why would you get up and go do that when you've got a girl in your bed? You know what I'm saying? Like, because the thing about it is, that's how bats actually sleep, and it's late at night. I think clearly they're trying to tell us that he's sleeping doing that.
I mean, maybe he just doesn't sleep. I mean, well, he does sleep, but maybe he only sleeps during the day, so he's like, oh yeah, we're going to bed right now.
The way most people interpret that scene, and again, they don't give us a lot of information, Vince, but the way most people interpret that scene is he's laying awake in bed because he doesn't sleep comfortably in a bed, so then he goes upside down because that's the only way he can sleep. Because Tim Burton likes to do a lot of... Think about his other movies. He likes to get really literal. Think about it. His Batman is literally a bat. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, like that. He's not exercising. I mean, even if he's not sleeping, he's doing that because he's trying to be a bat. Obviously.
Yeah, well, no,
you still have his arms are. I mean, he's trying to look like a bat.
Well, his arms were almost shoulder level. He was just letting them kind of dangle a bit without just being straight up over his head.
Yes, but not all of us like are exercise people like you. Like when the average person watches that scene, they say, "Oh, it's supposed to look like wings."
Yeah,
obviously.
I don't doubt that it's supposed to be a bat. I just didn't think he was sleeping in that scene.
He's totally sleeping. He's totally sleeping. I don't care what you say. He's sleeping.
He could just be hanging out.
He's sleeping. Again, even if he's not, it's so weird to like risk your identity like that.
Yeah, but people do that. I mean, especially with the fitness craze that came to power in the 80s.
All right. I never would have thought of that. I don't know why we're still talking about this, but I
thought this was going to be a little comment and we were going to laugh and move on.
That's what I thought, but then this is like, is he sleeping? I'm like, crap, now we're talking about it. You notice all these really weird murals everywhere in in Grissom's building.
Man, well, rich people have money to throw at their walls.
There's a face. I'm going to mention this earlier. On the door across the hall, right behind Joker, when he first walks in, and we get that reveal we were talking about earlier. There's this big giant face that looks like a clown face, and I just think that's kind of weird. that's there. I always thought one of the cooler visual ideas in this is that the Joker wears makeup to look like he doesn't have makeup on, and then he can wipe it off. And then it's a very simple effect where it's simply you have the makeup in your hand while you're wiping off your face. So it's supposed to look like you're wiping off makeup, but you're actually putting on makeup. I love that. It's just a very simple, practical effect. It's very clever.
I think it's really neat. It hasn't even happened yet for those of you who are watching.
Oh, yeah, but I just want to bring it up while I'm thinking about it.
See, like, in this scene where he's dancing and singing while he's killing a guy with a joy buzzer, I mean, I think Jack Napier pre-becoming the Joker would have been more like, bam, you're dead. I mean...
He's very no-nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, every so often he would be a little giggly beforehand, but I really think that Jack Nicholson Joker's a legit Joker.
I tend to think so too, but I do understand the criticism that he was already psychotic before he became the Joker. He's just kind of a different kind of psychotic now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when later on in the movie, when Bruce Wayne lists out like all of the things that the police have on him in the police records, like he clearly was a crazy person before he turned into the Joker. Where he had mental illness. He had mental problems.
Well, I think that people that are drawn to a life of crime, especially,
I guess the question is just, is that a problem that he already had? That I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I mean, that's the thing, is that you're looking at a guy who, I mean, would having your face disfigured be enough to drive you crazy?
Maybe not.
Maybe that's the thing, is that I find it questionable to... I feel like they are creating a...
You're saying it doesn't have to be such a light switch.
Yeah. I mean, just because the Joker... I mean, like, say, for example, the Joker was a comedian, then suddenly he has his face disfigured, and now he kills people. Really? I mean, even in...
Well, and then there's the Red Hood version, where he's already a villain, and he gets dropped in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, you've got to have a certain amount of... Maybe not crazy, but just at least you're not especially normal to put on a costume and go do crazy criminal activities.
Yeah, I mean...
And then you get dropped in a vat of acid. Yeah, so you're saying that it makes more sense that this guy would turn into this than, say, you getting dropped into a vat of acid. What would Vince be like if Vince got dropped in a vat of acid and then he looked like the Joker? What would happen? If you had a permanent smile on your face and you had your backstory, what would happen?
I think I'd be spending most of my time telling people to F off. Because people would be like, what's so funny? I'd be like, you can go flying, doing stuff in another place that I can't say on our podcast.
Wouldn't you put on like a hat and a trench coat like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles and just walk around like that all the time?
Yes! I have the hat. I need the trench coat.
I'm glad you're dead is one of my favorite lines in this movie. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, what do you think of Mark Hamill as the Joker?
I think Mark Hamill always had a great voice for the Joker. One of the things I really like about him is that he can do a wide range of Jokers. Where he can do something a little more kid-friendly, even though he still sounds pretty maniacal, and then you get into Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and he can do the full-blown adult, really scary, really maniacal Joker. He has different levels, and
sometimes I think people forget Mark Hamill's an actor as opposed to just Luke Skywalker and the voice of the Joker.
Oh yeah, exactly. He is an actor, and a lot of people these days talk more about him in that role in the video games than they do from the animated series, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Well, I've heard some younger people who don't even realize that he was the Joker before that, and what I like to tell people is he's such a good actor that he actually played the Joker as two different characters. I feel like and you played Arkham City, I feel like the Arkham City Joker is a different character than the animated series Joker. I really think so.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, well...
And they're both really great, valid Jokers, and he's doing similar things with them. I'm just saying that, like, and I think that his age helped him do a bit of a different one too. You know what I mean? Where his voice doesn't sound just like it used to, but I think he's doing some of that on purpose too. So anyway,
the Arkham Asylum universe, Arkham City universe is very different from the animated series. And what's interesting to me is that Batman is not entirely different than the animated series Batman.
No, he's pretty much the same character.
I mean, the only thing that I could really see is that he's a little more intense as Bruce Wayne, but then again, if you're dropped into the middle of a city where everybody wants to kill you, you kind of gotta be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the points I made when I reviewed Arkham Asylum was that that Batman is the protagonist of that story, and I reviewed it. For those of you that haven't heard that, I reviewed it on Superhero Rewind and reviewed it as a narrative because I think that there is a story there, and even though he's our protagonist, he doesn't change. And I feel like the point of Arkham, part of the point of Arkham Asylum was you throw him basically into the pit of hell, and you show that he has a lot of opportunities to go mad, and he doesn't change. That's what's so fascinating about him, is that he refuses and he can't change. So the idea that you brought up, that he in Arkham Asylum, in Arkham City, is kind of the same character that he is in the animated series, and that Paul Dini is writing it, I think it's really interesting. That he can be thrown in these really, really, really intense situations, and he stays the same. That's why he's such an enduring kind of character. Is that he doesn't let anything get to him. He can, and that's what I appreciate about the character.
I mean, there's the thing, is that having a character arc doesn't necessarily mean that you have to change. It's just that you
have to learn some big lesson.
Yeah, you just have an opportunity to change. And as to whether or not, I think a good story will give you all of the chances and every reason.
I must pause for a minute and say, mimes. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I've always wanted to see mimes killed, and yet here they are killing.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say mimes.
But what was I saying?
Sorry. I didn't mean to totally mess you up there. we were talking about
you can have a story where a character has a good story should have a chance for that character to change. They should give that character every reason that what they are doing might be counterproductive to the way that they are actually live their lives, and they should have a legit reason for staying the way they are. But there should still be an opportunity for change.
Sure, yeah. That's how you make a story about a character rather than just about plot. Mm-hmm. Or just about something else. Yeah. I have a question for you. Why does the Joker in this scene here with the mimes, when he goes to kill the guy who's in charge now after Grissom? Why? Spoiler alert! No, I'm kidding. Why does he have such a different look here? Did you ever wonder about that?
I always just thought because he was eccentric and because he was strange.
It's the only scene he does it, though. Everywhere else he wears the purple. Like this is the one scene where the red lipstick is different.
Yeah. I just kind of felt like he was trying to be more political and like he was being a mock politician at the moment.
Maybe so. Okay, I have a really goofy, geeky question for you here. When he was dropped in the vat of acid, did it give him red lipstick? Or does he add that himself? Because here, he doesn't have much red lipstick.
Yeah. In my head, I always just kind of assumed that he
put white over it. Yeah, exactly. Like, what happened there? Maybe it doesn't matter. One thing people have questioned some is how Bruce Wayne in that scene, when he gets shot over the shoulder, just gets grazed. And I always thought it was kind of strange, too, where, is he wearing Kevlar underneath his jacket? And is he so good at being Batman that kind of thing doesn't even bother him? Like, he doesn't flinch. He gets grazed over the shoulder, and does that bug you?
I never... I like that, actually, when he has that punching glove.
I always love villains breaking TVs. It's a cliche I never get tired of, Vince.
But
and what kind of world do we live in when a man dressed up as a bat gets all my press? Sorry.
Yeah.
That's another one. I mean, whether you like Jack as the Joker or not, I find him extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
I find him extremely entertaining. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But what was your question?
My question was grazing on his shoulder. Does it make sense? I mean, whether or not it makes sense that he doesn't get hurt or doesn't fall back or anything. Isn't it weird at least that he doesn't flinch or anything?
You know, in my head, he's just a guy walking around. Like, sure, maybe he has Kevlar underneath his coat, whatever. But in my head, the idea behind that scene is that he's supposed to be so dumbfounded by the fact that the Joker exists that, or maybe that, does he realize that Napier's alive yet? Does he realize that that's the same guy?
I don't think so, unless this is the scene where he says, I just found out Jack Napier is alive. He says that at some point, but I don't remember.
We may have been talking over it.
We've been talking over it. Yeah, that's where he says, I just found out Jack Napier's still alive. So he knows that's him. Well, at least he's smart enough that he can see the guy in makeup and know that it's Jack Napier. I mean, we've got a smart enough Batman here, at least for the most part.
Well, Batman should be smart enough regardless, unless
I
Jack
think
Napier
so
is just one strange-looking guy now.
But, you know, there's a lot of movies where, especially superhero kind of things, where we would just make the assumption that because he looks different, your characters wouldn't recognize him, you know what I mean? Because we are in a universe where people can put on costumes and we don't. Where in real life, maybe we would catch that they're the same person, but here we don't.
Yeah. To finish addressing that question,
yes, thank you. I'm sorry,
but it is weird to me that he doesn't flinch. But I feel like the point that he doesn't flinch isn't necessarily supposed to be because he's armored. It's because he's strong enough that he can take pain without flinching, and also that he's dumbfounded by the idea that the Joker or that Jack Napier is alive and is now the Joker, regardless of whether or not he realizes what that means about being the Joker.
Well, at the very least, he knows that whatever has happened to him, he's partially got to be the cause of it.
Yeah, so here's a guy who's just like fear and worry and emotion is just all over him at the moment, and he's walking through, and I find that to be...
I never noticed this before. I like that the Joker has an American flag on his desk. I think that's a little fun.
It's cool. I didn't know that either.
I never caught that. I always liked this set quite a bit. During the scene where he's cutting out the pictures. I do think that it's a little too typical and a little irritating that he has this fixation on Vicky Vale simply based on what she looks like.
Yeah.
Never cared for that. Where, and I've got to go after her because she's the big... female character in this. I mean, he's got these pictures all over the place, and that's the person that he goes after.
They introduced something later where he is showing pictures of her work to her.
Yeah,
when she's taking some gruesome pictures before, and I find that interesting. They could have played with that a little bit more. Like maybe
they really could have, because he doesn't even know who she is at this point. So that's all stuff that comes later. I'm just saying that he doesn't get fixated on her because of those photographs. Yeah. He's fixated on her now before he even knows about all that.
Yeah. No,
so you're right. They should have played that up.
I'm saying you have a legitimate complaint there, but they had something that was so interesting that they could have used. I mean, maybe he liked her work and he used it as decoration before he even became the Joker.
Yeah, it would have been very easy for them to make. Maybe not easy, but it wouldn't have been that difficult to make him interested in her for another reason than just simply she's the big female character in this movie.
No, I kind of feel like that was the point of revealing those pictures to her later. It's like, I realize that he has no real interest in her other than she's pretty, and there's loads of pretty women that exist in the world, so we have to come up with a reason for him to have interest in her.
So they're trying, but they're trying later, and they've already lost the ball on it.
I mean, that's why... You have to set a precedent. That's why I like the idea that the Joker's crazy before he's crazy.
It always bugged me that everyone that works at Action News is really, really ugly. Well, I mean, granted, you have some odd late 80s hairstyles, but there's just no good makeup on these people. They're everybody that works at Action News is just really ugly. Look at that lady.
They look like Frank Miller drawings.
That's funny.
To my understanding, Tim Burton's, when he started making this movie or before or whatever, when they were in the idea that we wanted, he took Dark Knight Returns and he says, make this movie look like this.
Yeah.
Everything has to look like Dark Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of feel like these people do look like Tim Burton drawings.
Thanks for saying that. I never noticed that before, but yeah, I'm thinking about that book right now, and they've got reporters in it, and they kind of look like this, especially her, that hairstyle.
Exactly.
I bet Tim Burton was looking at those comics when he did that.
The proportion of her face, her lips, I don't know. She just looks like a Frank Miller comic character.
A lot of people were very surprised when they found out that this movie was not going to be Dark Knight Returns. because that comic was so popular. When I interviewed Wally Wingert, he said that, because Wingert's friends with Adam West, and when they found, and what he said when I talked to him about that was when he found out that they were going to make a serious Batman film, he and a lot of other people thought that Adam West would have been perfect for the Batman from Dark Knight Returns, because he was the right age to play him. And it was like, and Wingert thought that it was like the role he was born to play. Because he did a silly Batman, but he started off as a serious actor, so maybe he could have pulled off, a late 50s, early 60s, serious Batman for Dark Knight Returns. And for a while, Wingert and some other people got kind of upset that he didn't get cast in the role because they thought that they were doing that, and then they found out, oh no, they're not doing that. They're doing an earlier Batman, and so it's got to be somebody else, But I don't know. I do think that was maybe a missed opportunity to get to see Adam West play an old, serious Batman. It would have been really, really, really kind of neat.
Yeah.
I say.
Oh, I'm finally going to finish this thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We keep getting sidetracked by commentating. But
well, that's what we're here for.
Indeed. But I don't find it a problem that he doesn't flinch. I find it a problem.
Are we still talking about that?
I find it a problem that he doesn't take evasive action. It makes no sense. Like, you could totally get shot. Your head is revealed, and they have machine guns. You don't think to duck? I mean, that's my problem with it.
That's a really good point. I do want to mention, because we talked over it, that the Joker commercial is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Yeah,
I think that's really fun, and I really like that they went with a plot that used a really classic Joker thing with the Smilex gas.
Yeah,
I really like that. I don't think they get enough credit for borrowing, from the comics with that.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not a real generic plot. It is a very standard Joker kind of plot. I'm glad they did that.
The Joker's not just robbing a bank. The Joker's, well, that's the thing that's cool about the Joker.
Yeah, I don't get the feeling that he could have been any villain in this. That's what I like, is that he does feel like, I don't know, a lot of people say he doesn't feel like the Joker, but I think he does.
Me too.
I think it just depends on what you want for that character.
See,
yeah.
This right here is why they're supposed to be not attractive people, is because they don't want you to have such a great shock when they don't look all primped and proper for TV.
Well, and I was joking earlier. Actually, the reason that they look like that there is because everybody is worried about using cosmetics products.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I was just joking. Like, see, that's why they didn't want you to be too shocked. Although, apparently Billy D. Williams' Harvey Dent is not worried about not looking good because he's got all that stuff in his hair.
Yeah, he's that awesome. He's okay. He's like, I've had that stuff forever. Nothing's going to happen.
He's like, I have a resistance to acid.
Do you feel like a lot of people that it was a major missed opportunity that he wasn't able to come back for Two-Face in a sequel?
A major missed opportunity, not necessarily. I think he would have made a good Two-Face.
I do too.
But it's not something that I'm like, oh man, if only he'd been able to play Two-Face. And I think there's some people that do that. They go, oh, he's
especially based on the two-dimensional, not all that great Two-Face we ended up getting.
Yeah.
In this particular continuity. In this continuity, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do like the idea of establishing Harvey Dent as a background character.
Me too.
I always thought it was neat that they used them, establishing their credibility working with the comic book universe. Harvey Dent, he's the district attorney. We don't even establish whether or not he knows Bruce Wayne, and it's not important. He's just there, and he's proactive. He's working for the common good. He's trying to make things. Yeah. He's trying to fix this Joker problem. But he's not real important, He's just there, and I like the idea of this is something that we don't get all the time in modern comic book movies. It seems like if it's a character that we've heard of, they're super important most of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like with the Spider-Man movies, for instance, a lot of people said for a long time, why can't Eric likes to bring this up? But why couldn't we have some villains that were kind of throwaway that we'd heard of, that we had in like one scene just to have them in the movie? You know what I mean? Why couldn't Spider-Man like fight Shocker in a scene, but he's not the big villain, things like that. And here I feel like they kind of did that. It's Harvey Dent. It's a character that a lot of Batman fans would know, and he's just there. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
I suppose maybe it is a missed opportunity that he doesn't play Two-Face, considering that they had a sequel by the same people who set up Harvey Dent in the first movie. Mm-hmm. So. And then he's largely absent from the second one, but largely as in not in it.
Well, yeah, largely he's not in it.
But I don't know who Urgent is, but it's for her. You probably should know.
Oh, Vince.
For those of you not watching, Vicky Vale just got a present that says urgent.
When she opens up the gas mask and it says put this on right now, Tim Burton in his commentary, I don't know why I'm talking about his commentary in a commentary, but he said he actually wrote that.
Oh, yeah?
It was actually Tim Burton's handwriting. I just think that's kind of a fun little tidbit.
His handwriting's all scratchy.
Does it take you out of the movie just a little bit that all of the pop music that anybody happens to listen to in this commentary, or in this continuity, is all by the same artist?
It never did, and it actually still doesn't.
Yeah, it never really bugged me either, but I just wondered, because I just kind of thought of that, where it's like all the music in this movie is all Prince.
You know, I have some Prince.
Let's broaden our minds. Sorry.
It really doesn't bother me
That's
at all.
That's another of my favorite lines in this movie, by the way. I love a villain walks in to deface a bunch of art at a museum, and he says, "Let's broaden our minds." It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. This movie has a reputation for really, really good one-liners, and I think it's very well deserved.
This is my favorite scene. I'm going to find it hard to talk over this thing when they just destroy all the artwork.
That's too much fun to watch, yeah. It's great. I think that's one of the things that makes the Joker likable, is that he doesn't do anything that makes him likable except that he's just fun to watch on screen.
Yeah. I mean, hang on, everybody who's not watching it. Talk amongst yourselves. We'll be back in a minute.
Well, I'm kidding. No, it's a podcast. We have to talk.
You know, the deal with Prince is that I feel it's not entirely un-Frank Miller-ish to...
We really are having a hard time talking over this scene.
Yeah. I feel like it's not entirely un-Frank Miller-ish to grab one thing as like a major pop culture phenomenon and that everybody latches onto as...
Oh, really? How's that indicative of Frank Miller?
Because I always feel like he has a commentary on pop culture, and don't destroy Blue Boy, but I always feel like he has a commentary on pop culture and people just following the norm. So it would make sense that everybody would listen to the same guy that's popular at the moment. But
yeah, well, see, the thing about this, one of the things about this movie that I always really liked is that it doesn't feel too inherently 80s. Except for the fact that there's a bunch of Prince in it, you know what I mean? Like stylistically, it's pretty timeless for the most part, with the exception of like hairstyles and things like that. And the one thing that really dates it is Prince, and that's not really a problem because I don't feel like it's. I also don't feel like it's really too dated, even with that. But I can see that criticism for some people. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I love his lighter. He lights all the candles with this torch that's in his pocket.
That's so cool. I remember when I was a kid seeing that and being confused by it because I thought that somehow the torch like changed what her hair looked like.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always thought that.
Now that's good work. Look, death and destruction.
That's what I like. This is the place where they try to establish his plans and motivations, and at the precise moment they start establishing it is when it starts breaking down and getting confusing. I think because he says that his whole plan is to be the world's first fully functioning homicidal artist. That's what he says, and that's his whole thing. And then he says he wants her to be in his avant-garde, and that she's supposed to help him. She's supposed to take pictures of all his art and stuff, yada yada yada. And then as soon as she says, no, I don't want to do that, he just immediately starts trying to hit her with acid, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like you start to wonder if he even really has a plan, or if he's just making stuff up as he goes along.
I really think that's what it is. I really don't.
And is that okay with you?
Yeah.
That he's just making stuff up?
Because I think his goal here is to essentially become like the number one guy, like the top criminal. And it doesn't necessarily matter if he's the top mob boss, but if everybody's afraid of him, who's going to question him other than Batman?
Good point. And he has a line in this that's very kind of indicative of that, where of like he's trying to kind of throw people off maybe to what he really wants because he says she says, what do you want? And he says, I don't know if we've gotten to that part yet, but she says, what do you want? And he says, my face on the $1 bill. And she says, you're joking. And he says, do I look like I'm joking? And that's a great moment.
there's a lot of those moments in here because when he says, "Do I look like I'm joking?" She meaning Vicky Vale, shakes her head,
but she can't decide.
She's like, "Well, yeah,
kinda. I don't know."
And there's a lot of moments in this movie. Like I feel like this movie is supposed to be comedic at a lot of points. Even Batman's supposed to be comedic at a lot of points, and maybe that's Tim Burton's intent on making it more comic booky, like they know, like the characters somehow are aware of their surroundings and their universe being what it is.
Yeah. And I think that they play it mostly straight.
What's interesting is that Looney Tunes do that a lot. They'll give that sly look at the camera and say, "Do you believe this guy that I'm looking at right now?" But
well, one thing that we have to keep in mind to keep things in perspective with this is what the actors must be thinking and feeling while they're playing these roles, because the superhero movie was not really a genre. There aren't very many of them at this point. You know what I mean? You had Superman, and that was about it for the big major comic movies. So when these people are putting on these costumes and playing these roles, they feel like it's ridiculous. And when you like when you watch the interviews for some of the actors on the DVD for Batman Returns, you hear Michael Keaton talk a lot about how every now and again they'd be on set. I just think this is interesting. Every now and again they'd be on set, and everybody on set would just start cracking up because of the absurdity of what they were wearing. That was in 1992. How many comic movies have been made now? Nobody is doing that anymore, making these movies. It's become such a validated thing to do now, and so many major actors now have worn costumes and been in superhero movies. Nobody is cracking up on a set anymore about how absurd it is.
I think people are getting to the point now where they're like, "How cool is it that I am Spider-Man?" or "How cool is it that I'm playing the comedian?" Like people that I read when this stuff came out back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
And like maybe people even go like, "Wow, I forgot that I was a big fan of comics when I was a kid, but I have every Daredevil book that came out from the time that I started collecting till the time that I turned 15.
And it's permeated culture a lot harder now than it used to, where superheroes used to be much more of just kind of a kid thing, and now it's much more of our modern mythology.
Yeah.
As adults. By the way, that big giant purple Joker van, I had one of those when I was a kid.
You have a Joker van?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a Joker van. Not the real one.
Now that there's music and gunshots going off, I'm having a little hard of a time hearing Cap.
Oh. All right.
So if I'm repeating myself... Look, Cap, can you repeat yourself?
But anyway.
That's cool. I don't know. I can't help but enjoy this movie. I just get caught up in it.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, the thing I enjoy the most about it is that it's such a it's such an escapist film.
Mm-hmm. I used to have a Micro Machines Joker van.
That was the one I had. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, I didn't have the big one. I had the little Micro Machines one. Yeah.
I also had the Batmobile and the Batplane.
Yeah.
And I loved that Batplane. I'd sit there and push that. They had 3 little prongs on the bottom of it to hold it up, and I would just sit there and push it in my thumb until it hurt. And just look at the indentation in my hand. I'm like, that's dangerous for kids.
This movie had an unprecedented amount of merchandise. For those of you that weren't around when this movie was made, I mean, like an unprecedented amount. And so when we see all this mega merchandising for movies these days, a lot. This is where most of that started. This movie did a lot of things for the first time that's just kind of normal now. The hiring out a major like a famous artist to write the soundtrack for a movie, that hadn't been done very much yet. Like it was with Prince. That was kind of new. Doing something with like the Warner Brothers logo at the beginning and changing it up a little bit to go along with the movie, that was kind of new and hadn't really been done before. And Tim Burton takes a lot of credit for this movie doing that and things like that. So it really, in a lot of ways, I've always seen this movie as kind of the quintessential commercial film, because so many major commercial movies did what this did. Why? Because it was a monster success and it works.
I don't know if this is really something that should be following the heels of what you just said there.
No, that's okay. It doesn't. It's not important. I just wanted to say that.
But Tim Burton, I sort of feel about Tim Burton the same way I feel about Jeff Loeb a lot of the time, is that they have certain things that...
Jeff Loeb is a terrible movie director, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
But there are certain things that they've made that I can't bring myself to think anywhere bad about it. I mean, this movie has its faults, but I like it. Nightmare Before Christmas, I really like that movie.
I do too.
There are certain.
Oh, and I don't mean to talk too much smack on Tim Burton. You and I did a G&M once on that, whether or not Tim Burton is a good director. I like some of his movies a whole lot, and then I just think that after a while he started making the same movie over and over again. That's my thing with him.
Yeah, I sort of feel the same way about Jeff Loeb, is that there are certain things that they do that they did really well, and then they get stuck, and they
had
don't...
a close-up while this guy is coming at Batman with these blades. I'm sorry, I gotta say this real quick. They had this close-up on Batman's face. That's not Michael Keaton. Really? It was a stunt double. See, that's Michael Keaton. But before, they did 3 major close-ups of his face that weren't even clipped. It was 5 to 10 seconds. But because he's in the middle of a fight scene, it's a stunt double. And they didn't even trade him out for Michael Keaton. I guess they just figured we wouldn't notice because he's wearing that costume. But it's clearly not Michael Keaton's mouth. This is the first time I've ever noticed it. It's seeing this 150 times, Vince.
Yeah.
Never noticed that before.
It was something new every time.
Every time. When I reviewed this, that was one of the things I said about it, is that the mark of a good movie is when you notice something new every time you see it. And I still had that with Batman, even after seeing it a bazillion times. Despite the problems that it had. And in fact, a lot of things I notice now are the problems that I never really noticed before. Does it bug you that Batman in this, for all intents and purposes, kind of uses guns? He doesn't carry around handguns, but he's got gun turrets on his plane. He's got gun turrets on his car, and he blows up a whole power plant filled with people. Those are a lot of things that people point to when they say that this is not really Batman. I feel the need to bring that part up because that's a major thing. How do you feel about all that?
Batman's used guns in the comics before.
That's what a lot of people point to.
So
in his earlier days, yeah, but he was very well established in the comics at this point as being a character that does not use guns.
And I don't know. It doesn't really bother me, especially since he's not carrying handguns. Does it
bother you that he kills people? I guess is my question.
Maybe. I can't really say that it bothers me that much because I feel like we have one Batman that does one thing, we have another Batman that does another thing. I mean,
the question is, what makes it the same character? What makes him Batman?
The origin, the motivations, the intent.
See, I'm not sure if those are all the same here because we don't get very much about him. And that's part of the problem with having a Batman that is tried to make so mysterious, is that when he kills people and when all we really know about his backstory, his motivation is his parents got killed, it's difficult for me to reconcile those things, and that's one of my complaints about the movie these days.
I don't want to prove my ignorance here, but
no, that's fine.
I forget when he kills anybody. He literally shot some people in this scene just previous?
No, as I said, he blows up the power plant later on in the Batmobile. It's filled with people. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like he tries to evacuate those people. I mean, he sends the Batmobile in, drops a bomb, blows up the entire power plant. All the people that were in there are dead. You see what I'm saying? He kills people, and knowingly so.
I never noticed that.
He blows it up with bombs.
It never occurred to me there was anybody in there.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. When I was a kid, I guess I didn't think about it either. But they, if I remember right, and we'll see it in a few minutes, I'm pretty sure that they show folks, inside the building.
That's messed up.
That's what I mean. So So I mean, why does that bother you? And then of course, when you get same director Tim Burton, when you get into Batman Returns, he does just straight up kill people. He lights people on fire, and he brings a whole wall on top of a guy, and all kinds of stuff like that. You can actually body count that movie. You never noticed.
I never noticed.
That's a lot of people's big complaints with the early Batman movies, with Tim Burton's Batman movies, is that we have a Batman that kills people. And he clearly, in both movies, kills people.
I'll say it still doesn't bother me.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying that it's a criticism that I think is worth talking about.
No, that's something that I think is legitimate. It's a legitimate thing to mention. I mean, especially when you get...
Which one of these monitors is hooked up to an NES? I'm just asking. Which one does he play NES? Anyway, sorry. Okay.
Which one is looking at the inside of a liquor store? Because it looks like it's one of the screens... Two of the screens just have bottles on them. That's how Batman kills people. Is he makes bottle rockets and Molotov cocktails.
I've gotten to the point these days when I watch movies that have a superhero with a mask that has large open eye holes like that, where they have to paint the black underneath it. I always think about that sort of thing these days because, as you know, I'm just looking at all the ones that have bottles on them. I've always gotten to where I get these days where I'm always like fixated on that and wondering if I'll see a place where we won't see the black. Ever since I watched The Phantom again, because I don't know if you remember this, but toward the end of The Phantom, there's this goofy scene where he takes his mask off.
And there's
no black under black paint. Where there was black paint, he takes the mask off and the black paint miraculously disappears. That always cracks me up.
The phone just rang in the movie, and I just looked at my pocket.
Does your phone sound like a rotary phone when it rings?
Yeah.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It's just
cool.
Done.
I gotta say, I always thought that it was a little bit clever of Tim, and maybe this is wrong of me, I always thought it was a little clever of Tim Burton to make it look for a split second like Batman just raped Vicky Vale. Because that's what they do at the end of that scene. We were talking over it, of course, because we're doing a podcast. But he says, "You still have something I want." And then he pops his cape up, and then the bats fly up, and then you have no idea what happens until she says in that scene right there, "Oh God, he took the film." So you know that all he did was take the film that she took the pictures of, so that she doesn't have shots to put in the newspaper of Batman. That's all that happened. But for a split second, because he's so mysterious, you wonder, "Oh God, what did he do?" What did he do to her?
You know what's kind of cool?
That's very Burton.
What's kind of cool about this movie is that, especially since he kills people.
That's now the second TV Joker just blew up.
This time, he didn't use a big glove.
Nope. It was less subtle. Because it was a gun. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But, one of the things that makes this cool for me, now knowing that he kills people, I never realized that. Oh my God.
That's funny.
But I kind of get a little tired of it when I read superhero comics and they have this idea that you should just kill this guy. We know that killing the Joker would be so much easier than doing anything to catch him. Just kill him. Get it over already. And I kind of get tired of that plot line being played over and over and over again. I think it makes for a decent story. I understand that was one of the plots of Arkham City. That's cool. I'm fine with it. But it's one of those things that annoys me, especially when we get two characters together like Batman and Superman. Like, especially when Superman says, "Your ways are not right." He doesn't kill anybody. I mean, how different is he from you other than you don't have to hide in the shadows, and he does because he's human.
Yeah, I think it's because Batman uses intimidation and Superman doesn't like that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about that is
Batman will go... I think the point is that Batman will go all the way up to the point of killing someone. Yeah. Or he'll get really, really close to that, but he'll never go all the way. And that's the thing that bothers Superman is that he's always afraid that Batman has the possibility of going over the edge because he gets so close to it. And that's what's very interesting about that dichotomy that I've always liked between Batman and Superman, and the whole Batman refuses to kill people, but Superman thinks he goes too far anyway. There are places in the animated series from the early 90s that I was always impressed that they were able to get away with Batman nearly torturing a person in that show. There's one scene in one of the earliest episodes where he's trying to get some information out of a guy, and he's dangling toxic chemicals over this guy, about to drop it on him if he doesn't tell him what he wants to know. And I'm just like, wow, for a Saturday morning cartoon show, like, that's heavy stuff, you know? These are the things Batman will do that Superman will not do.
You see, I don't think you really, really need to threaten bodily harm. All you have to do is have a stake, a torch, and a popsicle.
Wow, we've now referenced both Punisher movies in this podcast. If we can get some 89 in there, then we'll be good.
Oh yeah,
yeah, right. We were talking about the whole scarred face thing.
Yeah, I forgot about that
with Warzone.
You know. Before we even started recording for this podcast, Cap's like, I thought we would watch 89 today. And I was like, yeah, I think that sounds good. I really like that Punisher movie.
I was like, yeah. 5 people will watch that particular commentary podcast, Vince.
As it turns out, nobody gives a crap.
2 of them are Oz.
I actually really do like the 89 Punisher movie.
I liked it too. I gave it a pretty favorable review when I reviewed it. I don't remember what I graded it. I think it was a 2 or a 2.5. I think it was a 2.5. I think it was over average. I mean, it's a decent. I mean, it's not good. It's not great, but it's good.
You know, when I was watching that movie, I kept comparing it to this one. Like, I'm like, it came out in '89, and there's so much like stuff that just should have been different in that Punisher movie. Like, how did you guys not realize that was goofy as all get out?
I think Vicky Vale has a really neat apartment. I think it's interesting that it kind of has the same decor as the museum. She seems like she lives in just like a mini museum.
Well, she's an artist.
And then there's, of course, but I would live in that apartment. That's a neat apartment.
You know, sometimes I think people surround themselves with a style because they, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but they surround themselves with a style.
We got time, Vince. It's okay. You can talk about whatever you want to. There's plenty of time in this podcast.
Like, people will say, I'm going to decorate this way or dress this way because this is who I am. And they say, well...
I'm looking at my t-shirt.
They're like, I'm a punk, so I need to have a mohawk. Or they're like, I'm a girl, and I need to have fishnets because I like punk music. Well... Just because you like pop punk doesn't mean you make you a punker. You don't have to wear the uniform of the thing that you enjoy. So that's just something I think is interesting, and it kind of reflects Vicky Vale's penchant for looking like an art museum in her home.
I want to talk about the scene for a minute because I like it a lot. I think it's a fun, well written scene, but I always wonder why Bruce Wayne feels the need. I don't understand his tactics in this scene. I don't understand why he feels the need to tell the Joker that he knows that he's Jack Napier. I'm not real sure what his motivation is for this. And then there's the whole he says you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. And then he gets and then he pretends to get shot and everything. I'm just not sure where he's going with this. And then at the end of the scene he just disappears and he's back to being Batman again. I'm just not real sure what his whole
I always thought the idea was
what he's doing.
I always thought the idea was trying to push Joker overboard so that they would actually shoot him, and he would be like, well, I was guarded anyway, now they think I'm dead, so I can just leave. And
and then he won't put 2 and 2 together as to who Bruce Wayne and Batman is, too. Because if he thinks Bruce Wayne is dead, although... it would be in the newspapers if you
Well, I'll say this, that not necessarily that he thinks Bruce Wayne is dead, but more that he's like just trying to get them out of the apartment so that he can go become Batman and get all of his fun gadgets and defeat the Joker. But
and maybe he's doing this to protect Vicky Vale too. Like maybe he's, although it's not real smart to be like, I'm trying to get somebody to shoot at me. Although they made eye contact right there, like he was trying to get Vicky Vale to get out of the way because he was about to do something crazy. Like he's doing something tactical. I just don't know what it is.
He's breaking her vase.
He's like, don't worry, I'm Bruce Wayne. I'll pay for that.
I actually really like what he says. You want to get nuts?
Yeah, me too. It's great.
And it's a well-delivered line.
Very Michael Keaton. I always wondered if he improv that. It's so Michael Keaton. Do you like the Dance with the Devil line?
Yeah. No, sometimes I think that Michael Keaton could have been a decent Joker.
Yeah, and other people have said that. In fact, there were some people kind of campaigning for him to be the Joker in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Before Ledger was cast, yeah, because he's a little bit older. I mean, because he's older now, and they thought that after he did Beetlejuice, maybe the Joker's not that far of a leap, and it'd be kind of fun to see the same guy who played Batman play the Joker in a different continuity.
Yeah.
There were actually some fan art pieces trying to see what he would look like as the Joker, and I can see it. Yeah. I can see it. There's some talk right now about Beetlejuice 2. I don't know if that's a rumor, if it's actually happening, but there's some talk about it that Tim Burton and Michael Keaton are thinking about getting back together and doing that. Michael Keaton is not a big fan of doing sequels, so I would be very surprised if he signed on for that.
I would not necessarily support Beetlejuice 2.
I don't think I would either.
I want to just say that I don't think this tray could necessarily stop a bullet.
Yeah, I don't either. I do really enjoy this part where she opens the box. One of the things that... Now, is that an actual dead hand, or is that just a plastic hand?
It just looked like plaster to me.
Yeah, I thought it did too, but I always wondered if it was supposed to be like a...
That would have made this
an
movie
actual
much
person.
creepier.
Much creepier.
I
Well,
always thought it was plaster.
we see that right after he talks about Alicia throwing herself out of a window, and I always wondered if that was supposed to be her hand somehow.
He just, solidified the hand and played paper mache or something. Like, there you go.
Yeah, or it's just the worst prop ever. Both are possible.
Yeah.
One of the things that I never ever liked about this movie is that Vicky Vale screams a lot, and it's kind of irritating.
I do find it irritating. I find women that are not strong in their roles to be irritating. Granted, that's just trying to adhere to the idea of the damsel in distress. Maybe they feel like they need to have one of those people in this, and maybe the idea is that this sort of
clearly they do. We have all the cliches, right? She's being pursued by the villain. She gets kidnapped at the end. Yada yada yada. At least she's not entirely not proactive. She does bluff him at the end and all that. So.
And there are scenes in this movie that are shot to be scary. I mean, the
Absolutely.
Joker's reveal, the Joker's, reveal to himself in that scene even. So there are things in this movie that are supposed to be horrific. And if you have a scream queen, because that's what they're called, they have to scream. So the main... or the
is that somewhat like a laugh track? It tells us when we're supposed to be scared? Or it tells us when the characters in the movie are supposed to be scared?
That's one of the reasons why I don't really enjoy a lot of slasher movies, is that people scream a lot. I'm like, I don't care. First of all, what subtlety in acting does it take to scream?
And secondly, doesn't it immediately make a character a little bit more two-dimensional when they scream at everything?
Yeah. Granted, in her defense, I guess she doesn't scream when the hand pops out of the box. But
this is something I want to comment on because it always makes me laugh. Where the Joker and the Mayor are both on screens and talking, and the Joker somehow or rather has the ability to move the screen over and take over screens with his hand. And that just makes me laugh every time. I don't know how he's doing that. And I don't know who's running his tech for him either.
I like how in this scene they're looking in the direction of the Joker on the
I don't understand that.
Like they're not looking around, where's that voice coming from? They're looking directly to the left.
This is one of those inconsistencies that I can't decide if it's an inconsistency or what exactly the Joker is doing. Where he says, I've been called a lot of things. Many of them were true. One thing I am not is a killer. And in the previous scene, he says, I want to be the world's first homicidal artist. Like, why is he lying to these people? If they find him, they're going to arrest him regardless. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what he's doing. And I guess, he's trying to get people there, I suppose, so that he can throw money at them and then kill them. So I guess maybe there's that maybe he's just lying to the public. Maybe that's all it is.
That's what I always thought it was. I'm like, I don't think he really cares what the politicians think about him anyway. All he really wants is to get people there so he can cause mass anarchy.
So he's just saying whatever he thinks he has to the masses to get them there because they're just the stupid little people. Yeah. So he can say, okay, A, I'm not actually a killer. People just don't know what they're talking about. B, I have a lot of money. And C, I can get Batman there and you can see us fight. Mm-hmm. And that's going to get them all there.
Exactly.
And it does, and then he plays on their greed and tries to kill them all.
Exactly.
All right.
It makes sense to me.
I still think Batman with glasses is weird.
Bat glasses.
Wouldn't it be great if they had, little ears?
I would love to see that. Bat glasses.
Bat glasses. What is that thing up there? There's this thing.
There's a bat.
Is it a giant? But is it a giant? It looked like it was a... I'm sorry. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, it's difficult to explain. It looked like there was a big animal in the Batcave above Bruce Wayne while he's watching the Joker talking.
I think it's a bat just hanging from the ceiling.
But it's huge!
Yeah.
It looked like... Oh, okay, you're right, it is.
I think there's a couple bats.
Oh, there's a couple... Wow. I wonder if they're animatronic or what they are. Don't you kind of wonder?
Oh, they're probably just regular bats.
Oh, I doubt they actually put bats in there. I would be very surprised if they used actual bats.
Footlight. No, that's very Frank Miller. I mean, just the...
that angle?
Well, not even the angle.
Like flashback?
The poster.
Okay. Used. I didn't look at it. We're looking at the beginning of the flashback where Bruce's parents get killed.
Oh, well, they're just his parents. I mean, It's not like that's a legitimate motive for trying to defeat crime.
I'm just telling people where we are in the film.
Wait, where are we in the film? Oh, his parents, that's right.
We're back at the very beginning with those people looking for a taxi cab. Bruce's parents go, we're going to look like tourists.
See, this scene makes more sense to me if if this is just a bad dream rather than a recollection.
But it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more sense to me. Like how can he conveniently have killed your parents?
Well, and again, it's something that you could build in to make it make sense. You know, yeah. all you have to do is come up with the right puzzle pieces to make it all work together, so that it's not conveniently the guy who took over for Grissom is also the guy who killed Bruce Wayne's parents, of all people. Because the problem is the city's just too big for that kind of thing. I always get bugged in Daredevil, and it's in both cuts. It's not like it's not like a cut problem. It's just a problem where you're in the middle of New York City, and Elektra walks up behind Matt Murdock in the middle of the street in the middle of the night and just says, "I knew I'd find you." Like, how'd you find him? Like, I want to know how you found him. Like, what did you do? Like, you just walked around and, oh, there he is. Like,
it was the calling of the blood.
Like, no, there's no way. It doesn't work, you know?
You know, there'd be a very easy way to, if, supposing Jack Napier is part of organized crime,
which he is.
So supposing that this guy is involved with organized crime.
But I'll humor you, sure.
And Bruce Wayne's parents are major public figures, you know, presuming that's a possibility, that maybe a member of organized crime would be told to kill them for some reason, and then he just climbs the ranks after that. So therefore, we have some reason. There is, like, maybe the Waynes are trying to establish something that's getting in the way of the plans of the mob.
It needs to not be a random killing.
Exactly. So if it's just a mugging, it doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, maybe we can conjecture here that maybe it's not just a random killing. That maybe it's just, or maybe because he's involved in organized crime, we're supposed to assume that it's not a random killing.
Yeah, but you can't really assume anything because we're not told enough. You're absolutely right.
It's difficult. That's the thing, and that's why this movie has imperfections. But I think there's a lot of people that will celebrate this movie because of those imperfections. Like, I don't want to know that stuff.
You're right.
Don't tell me.
People just say that. I still think it's an inherent storytelling problem. And the reason is because I'm taken out of the movie while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's designed to do that so we won't notice all the weird third act problems. Because once again, I'll point out my favorite when we get to it. I've talked about it before, but it's my favorite thing. So
is it the part where Batman dances with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, that's always weird, dude.
Yeah, I didn't realize the devil was a character.
He has a pitch back for it.
You know, I saw a picture on the internet the other day just to talk about something that's not important. But it was some kind of artist rendering where I think it was supposed to be Jesus being Satan trying to tempt Jesus, and they made Robin look like Jesus and Batman look like Satan.
Why?
It was really interesting.
And super weird.
Yeah. It's almost like Batman is the Pied Piper of children, leading them to their doom.
I want to mention something that happened earlier.
The Pied Piper, anyway.
By the way, this is going to be the scene where he kills a whole bunch of people. First of all, he's got machine gun turrets on his. I
love how it puts a straight line across.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
He just had that all planned out. So all those people are already there. I'm going to mention something else in a minute, but let's get through the scene.
Run, everybody! Run to your doom. Try to defeat that. I feel like we're doing a radio show here. Oh no, I am being drowned now. Stop drowning me.
Yeah, exactly. So the bomb gets dropped, and we saw people around the Batmobile. So we have to assume that there were people all over that building. Right?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
If there weren't, then he would have been in the car.
I guess it just never occurred to me. It's one of those things like they're bad guys. They die. That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you're a kid, you think that's the reason that when we were kids, I think a lot of us just thought that the good guys kill the bad guys. We didn't even think, oh, good guys don't kill. It was just, well, they only kill bad guys. You know what I mean?
Like, presumably there's no good guys in the building, so what's it matter if the bad guys die?
Yeah. And I don't... We don't... that's counterintuitive to a lot of people's thinking these days. You know what I mean? Where it's supposed to be that good guys don't kill at all.
Yeah. I don't know. There are certain things that are parallels between superheroes and old-time westerns, with the white hats and black hats, with the superheroes and supervillains.
And you're saying this is such a black and white thing that we're supposed to be okay with that.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is that the white hat guys don't necessarily not kill the villains. Granted, I say that full well remembering that there are some things that were supposed to be child-friendly, and, well, you can't have the Lone Ranger killing people, so he only shoots the guns out of their hands.
Right.
So,
and sometimes things in that show and other things would be kind of implied, but you wouldn't really know.
Yeah, but
where, like, maybe somebody died, but you don't really know. Like if you blew up the side of a mountain or something.
Yeah.
But there's no implied. All those people died.
Oh, they all got into the Batmobile.
They got in it, even while it was armored.
Yeah. Everybody got in the Batmobile, he drove them to safety, and then he dropped them off at Arkham Asylum.
The thing I wanted to mention earlier was there's a part a couple scenes back where Alfred says to Bruce, I have no wish to spend my few remaining years mourning the loss of old friends or their sons. And I always really liked that line, and I like that we have a moment where we see that Alfred is not real comfortable with Bruce Wayne's lifestyle, and that he this whole movie keeps pushing him to get with Vicky Vale because they get along and he likes her, and he's trying to get him to have some kind of a normal life. And I think that all of that could have been played up a little bit more, because that's really the most human stuff you get with Bruce in this, is that he's this really mysterious figure, but Alfred humanizes him to a point.
What's interesting is that I feel like this movie is desperately trying, well, not desperately trying, it's really succeeding about just giving you what's fun. And there are things like, I feel like they know what they have on their hands and they don't care, which is maybe distressing, but maybe that's a problem. Well, no, that is a problem, but
it is for something that's popular because it sets a bar. That's why I was so bugged with Smallville running 10 seasons. But anyway.
But there are a lot of things in this movie that are just straight up entertaining, and they're trying to add character stuff, but it's peripheral. It's not something that they really considered. They didn't think,
right.
I need a character arc for Batman. They're like, how do we make Batman mysterious, but give him a character arc? So they put these little things in there.
It's not the priority. You're right, it's not the priority. I love the Batwing. I think it's a wonderful design.
It's pretty.
It's really pretty. There's a toy version of that Hot Toys or somebody just made recently that I really want. It's so awesome. It's like a $400 or $500 toy, but it's really cool. I think.
Oh yeah.
I want the microphone the Joker has in this scene. I want that microphone. It's cool.
It's a very old style microphone. I like that thing. I always kind of wanted one of those microphones that like crooners used or that Elvis would use. And it's that kind of microphone. What's funny to me is he calls them tights.
And they're not. The whole thing's rubber.
Like, you've seen them face to face. You know they're not tights. Well, granted, surely they fit really tightly, but still.
Sometimes these really pretty animated landscapes make me like CG less.
Yeah.
Because it integrates really well with all this. It actually looks better even in my mind, because it's such a stylistic film. It integrates. It wouldn't necessarily integrate with other things well, but I think that the color palette that they're using for the live action stuff and everything, it meshes really well. You feel like you're in a comic book. And when and actually I think it meshes even better than a little bit later on, which I'll point out when you get to the models. Because they do some model stuff that these days would just be done with CGI. And it's pretty clear that you're looking at little model cars and model streets and things like that in some of the scenes here in a couple minutes, when especially when the Batwing falls and stuff like that.
I just remembered, I'm not sure why I'm suddenly thinking about this, but I wrote a paper on this for a film class.
On what? On Batman? Really? Yeah. I'd like to read it.
When, granted, it was my my second year of college, so don't expect much. But I wrote a paper on this thing. It was about the style. It was about how the action scenes were shot and how it made it more comic book like. And
Did you get a grade?
I think I got it was either a high B or a low A.
Excuse me, I'm eating peanuts.
I find it questionable that these guys have to wear straight-up gas masks to survive, and yet he can just take one of those little doctor face masks and not die.
And not die?
Because it's Robert Wool. He's funny enough that...
Yeah, that's true. His comedy keeps him alive.
You know, these... He has a hat that keeps his comedy in, too.
You know, it's bugged me the last few times I've seen this when Vicky Vale looks through her camera and sees these balloons and the gas, and she yells, "Smilex gas." And it's like the only time in the whole movie that I found that it's called Smilex gas. It's almost like it was that way in the script the whole time, and the people making the movie knew that's what it was supposed to be called. But like if you blink, you miss it. And every time I saw this previously, this is just a tiny nitpick, but every time I saw this previously, I always thought she said "smells like gas." And it wasn't until I saw this once for whatever reason with the subtitles that I saw that it said Smilex. I always thought that was kind of weird. I was like, at what point did somebody call it that, and that she would know that that's what it's called?
That
so
never occurred to
thought
me.
that was weird.
There's
There's no reason it should, Vince. There's no reason it should.
That's one of those things that maybe, and I don't know, I'm just, talking, because that's what this is for.
Because that's what this is for.
But, maybe it's just one of those things that she's a reporter to some extent. She's a reporter. She's more of a photographer than a reporter. But, so she's a reporter, and she can name things. Like, I've seen it in comics where they say, they call me this in the newspaper, so that's what they're going to call me now.
Or maybe somebody already wrote about it in a newspaper, and that's just been definitively what people are calling it. Yeah. But maybe she didn't name it. Maybe somebody else did.
So
maybe Knox or somebody named it.
It's plausible in this universe that somebody called it Smilex gas,
and now that's what everybody calls it. But it's one of those. It's a lazy thing. It's one of those things where it should be established somewhere if you're gonna use it.
And they have enough newspaper shots in this movie that all you have to do is put Smilex gas in there.
Okay, now we get to one of those points where I have to really call BS a little bit on the Joker here. Or rather on his henchmen. So Joker gets all angry because Batman steals his balloons. Why didn't somebody tell me that he had one of those things? I love that line.
Me too.
And he just shoots his main henchman, Bob. Which is very funny. And again, like you said, it's all about being entertaining, right? So that's just there because it's a funny comedic moment.
Yeah.
He gets rid of Bob. All the rest of the henchmen, totally okay with that. Like, any of them could go at any time, but they're still following him, and they're totally fine with him. I mean, like, they've all got guns. Yeah, when Batwing comes up to the moon. That's so great. But anyway, does that not bug you just a little bit? Every one of them's got guns. If they all wanted to, they could totally turn on the Joker right there if they wanted to, and they'd probably win.
I feel like it's sort of the group mentality, like people are sheep to some extent. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, they're paying us.
And that's really played up in Dark Knight, at the beginning of Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm. I mean, people do what they're told to do just because, why, excuse me, why should they argue with the guy that's in charge? Now, that's a problem.
But, like, the next person that ends up being, like, the Joker's number one is that guy at no point going to think, crap, at any time, he's going to ask me for my gun and shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. and then
number one or number two?
Yeah.
Which one looks clearer?
That's hilarious. So then Batman is coming after the Joker, and he fires all these machine guns. I said this when I reviewed this, but he fires all these weapons, missiles, machine guns. Is he trying to kill him? Or is he just shooting? Because if he's trying to kill him, he's a terrible shot.
Yeah. What's weird is that it's not like they went to the side. It's not like he was just too close or anything.
Huh.
They went straight up to his feet, then stopped, and then everything went around him. So it was like he was trying to miss him.
Yeah, it's goofy. It's like, why would... And he's looking through these huge lenses. Clearly he's trying to kill him. This is all model stuff. That's some of
Models
this is.
are pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's all model work. You can kind of tell that's a toy car. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. What's interesting is the car across the street looks perfect, but that one looks like a toy on the right.
Yeah, isn't that weird? But And then like that whole thing, and again, it's such a fun scene to watch, but the whole thing bugs me. Like the Joker, we've seen clearly walking around and bending his knees, but he's got this huge gun stuck in his pants. like, is there a place where it where it has a thing in the middle where it can where it bends? You know what I mean? And then like it's a collapsible.
You know what he should have done? What they should have done is had a henchman walking around with a limp the whole time, and then he's like, "Come here!" and he pulls his giant gun out of his henchman's pants.
And it's all just there for the gags. If those things were in a comic book, we wouldn't question it as much.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is that you know we comic book fans will say we want these movies to look like comic books. Not all of them, but certain things, especially this one. You know, it's like this is trying to look like a comic book. And we want it to look like a comic book. But then it does something comic booky that doesn't really make a lot of sense and translate that well to big screen, and then we call foul on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying that I'm aware of the fact that I'm contradicting myself a lot by complaining about things like that, because the thing I love about this movie is that it's so comic book. So what are you gonna do? You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You're gonna have plot. You're gonna have goofy little plot issues based on the fact that it's doing funny comic book gags.
You know, I really feel like this movie's tongue-in-cheek.
It is, sure.
Watching it when I was a kid, I thought it was supposed to be super serious.
Me too.
But now when I'm watching it, I'm like, this is how a funny superhero movie is made. It has these little gags that make it fun. And then you have movies like Punisher Warzone, where...
I love the pews in the church with a domino effect.
You know,
I really don't think that would happen.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, like, unless those are just, like, the most old, rickety pews ever. Like, I could see him, like, knocking one over, but it wouldn't knock the whole row of them down. Like,
yeah.
Usually those are bolted to the ground. Just saying.
You know, there are certain things that I forget that are in this movie.
Again, not me. I've seen it way too many times. I've seen it recently a couple times. That's part of the reason I picked it for the first one, because it was fresh in my memory, and I knew I'd have some stuff to say about it.
Oh, Joker, you dainty creep.
with the shoe.
He kisses the shoe and drops it down the tower. Something interesting that I think I'll just point out, it's already come and gone, but right there before, or when the Joker leads Vicky Vale into this bell tower, he has music playing over the top of him that's not entirely different from Dracula, so it's it's very monster movie-esque, and
that's interesting.
Of course, since this is Batman, the obvious one that you're going to go to is going to be Dracula, and I find it interesting that they lead him in there, and then they have Batman walking in, this lone, scary figure by himself. I mean, I think there are things in this,
and the backdrop
like this music
Gotham.
right here.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because this isn't just the Batman theme. This guy is scary and evil.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it's super gothic. I mean, the music's gothic. The backdrop is gothic. We're in a friggin' church.
And the way it's shot...
I mean, with a bell tower, it's ultra gothic.
Yeah. I mean, and the way it's shot is, I think you're not supposed to believe, or you're not supposed to understand which one of these guys is really scary. The Joker or Batman.
That's a good point, yeah. Where maybe they're not as yin and yang as you would expect them to be.
Yeah.
Like and then of course pretty soon we're gonna get the whole I made you, you made me thing, where like they're both freaks. They're both kind of freaks of nature for different reasons.
That's scary to me. I don't know, large things falling.
Yeah. We're getting really close to that bit that I was mentioning earlier that always cracks me up. My favorite nitpick in this movie, I'll go ahead and mention it now. The Joker's got all these henchmen at the top of this tower.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, why did he put them there? Did he know that the Batwing was going to crash in front of this church?
He did have a
Does
helicopter.
Does he have people everywhere? Yeah, but what's funny about it is he tells the helicopter to be there in 5 minutes, and then he looks up and he sees how tall that tower is, and he says, better make it 10. He clearly has never been here before. Why does he have henchmen at the top of this tower? It's really funny to me. It's like, how did they get there? The helicopter has not been here because he just radioed the helicopter. Like, they're not near him.
See, the deal is he has two, and one drops off a bunch of people and then leaves.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want things to
the van is parked out back. No, it's not like a giant problem, but it's funny. I think it's funny.
No, you're right. There is a problem there, but it's
amusing that they didn't even think of it. Like, why does he have these people up here? So magically they appear.
No, I wonder if these problems are supposed to be problems, or if they're all supposed to be part of the tongue-in-cheek nature.
I don't think so. And the only reason I say that is that I have read, and it's been a while since I've looked into this, so I'm kind of rusty on it. Forgive me, but I have read that. The third act was written by somebody different than the person who wrote the first two. That there was a different third act planned for the most part, and that they had somebody come in and redo it. And so the inconsistencies come from kind of a commercial. We want a more exciting third act, I think, is pretty much what it was. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm just saying that you could make the argument that it's okay because it's tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think that it's a factual observation that it was done, that it was intentional. You see what I'm saying? I'm pretty certain that it was not intentional.
That sucks. One of the things that my paper was about how these action scenes are very comic booky. Like, Batman was thrown through a wall, and you don't just see him get thrown through a wall. They throw him, he impacts the wall, and then the next shot is him on the other side of the wall falling through. So it's like, I think I was talking about like a kinetic momentum, like the idea was this implied momentum. And I forgot about the bang gun. And it's not just about people getting thrown around and hitting each other. It's about cause and effect. It's about... like, whatever's about to happen here, maybe I can use it as an example so I don't just sound like a guy who's like, look, these things are both visual mediums. But...
no, you say whatever you want to. I have nothing to say right now.
See, like, he throws him, but instead of seeing the guy being thrown, you see him throw the guy, and then the guy hits the steps, because it's not about the movement, it's about the implication of the movement in comic books.
Yeah, and this is all choreographed like a dance. I mean, nobody really gets hurt.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, like, Batman, well, kind of, sort of, but I mean, like, he goes through a bunch of stuff where his bones would, of course, be totally broken and he wouldn't be able to get through any of this. But something somebody pointed out when I reviewed this on Rewind a couple of years back, I complained about Batman kind of stumbling around in the church.
Nobody actually gets hurt.
Yeah, no, I know. But I just mean during the fight, where you can take punches and get right back up. That's all I meant. Yeah. But I complained about Batman stumbling around and kind of didn't realize that the idea, and clearly this is the case, that the idea was, well, he just got in a plane wreck and he's limping and he's really, really hurt, and so that's why he runs into those pews and they all fall down, because he's barely functioning. And so then he's very slowly climbing these stairs, and like again, we don't get in his head, and we don't hear him say anything, and so you have to rely completely on Keaton's acting to realize how hurt he's supposed to be. You know what I mean? And I think that it doesn't come off the way it's meant to exactly.
I sort of feel like the entire scene where Batman just fought all these guys was ultimately unnecessary. Like, well, obviously, but...
clearly, because they shouldn't have been there in the first place!
I feel like the idea is that Joker should have just... I feel like Joker would have presumed Batman would have been too injured to carry on or dead. He was just in a plane crash. And...
that's a good point.
And then they climb this tower, they do their dance, waiting for the chopper to show up, and then the next scene should have been what just happened, which is Batman walks by very stoically, very quietly, and the only person that notices is Vicky Vale.
That's a great point. Doesn't it kind of come off like we just haven't had enough fighting in this movie?
Yeah.
So we need some fighting, and there's a bell here, and that'll be fun. Have some fighting around a bell.
I feel like that's what was supposed to happen, and also the person who wrote this final scene was like, I really like the idea of them dancing while Batman's fighting people. And
I'm sure that's just what that person sounded like. That's what Tim Burton talks like.
Let me pull out my glasses and with both of my hands, because that's how you pull things.
That's how Bruce Wayne talks when he's wearing his glasses in the Batcave. I like that we have all these gags at the end where we keep being reminded that Joker is a clown, and he really has totally lost his mind, and so he has the bang gun, and he throws the teeth, and pretty soon he'll have the lend you a hand gag and all that. I love all that stuff. I think it's fun. You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses. I love all that, and I love that it's all in one scene. That they just throw it all together like that. Like he's got a whole joke store in his coat.
Yeah,
and that's all super comic book. 80s comics. I wanted to make a point earlier in the museum scene, and I'm glad I just thought of this. I've actually read the script to this movie, and I don't know why I did this, but at one point I was looking at the script of this movie, and it reads so differently from the way it's played. It's fascinating. Like, if you just read it on the page and you see some of the lines that got altered a little bit on set and that sort of stuff, the way the lines are delivered, especially with Jack Nicholson, he interprets the script, especially in that museum scene, so differently from the way it just reads on the page. The way it reads, I could see it in a comic book. It feels like just straight Joker dialogue, and he adds something to it that makes it very different. And for some people, it makes him not the Joker. But if you just read the script, it's like, oh god, this is a mid-'80s Batman comic. That's what it is. The script is so different from the film.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that that's what actors bring to your filming process, is that they change the game a little bit.
Sometimes it's negative and sometimes it's positive.
Yeah. I was in a production of the Cherry Orchard, which I was, but it was not the same thing. I was in a college production of the Laramie Project, and I was asked to step in for somebody who decided that the material was too heavy for him to carry on with, and for those of you who don't know what the Laramie Project's
about...
When
you say heavy, it was just too emotional for him? Or?
Yeah, well, we froze. Oh, well, we're back to playing. Anyway. But the topic, the Laramie Project is about I think it's called the Laramie Project, is about Matthew Shepard, the gay kid that was beat to death.
Okay, you told me about this, yes.
And there's a line by a guy that's a cab driver. He's supposed to be a New York cab driver who moved to the area, and the line is, if I can just say it straight, is Matthew Shepard was he was a straightforward guy. He may have been gay, but he was straightforward, and that was the way that the person before me that was cast as that character delivered the line. And then I walk on the scene and I say, I'm Matthew Shepard. He was a straightforward kid. Maybe gay, but straightforward.
Right.
And the people are like, that's funny now. That wasn't funny before. But that's because that's what an actor brings to it. You have a different interpretation. It's legitimate.
And plus, it sounds like that actor was kind of scared of the script.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, I sort of felt like it was supposed to be goofy, a little bit funny, like he's making a pun here, although it's
clearly
really
that is a pun, yeah.
So, but I think it's a legit reading of it to say, he may have been a gay guy, but he was straightforward.
Yeah.
So, we're totally talking over one of the coolest parts of the movie.
Oh, yeah. The Joker just died.
And then Batman does a pull-up.
With one arm.
Oh, should have just done that to begin with, man. You have this.
So, there's another thing that some fans have complained about, where Batman seems to kind of deliberately kill the Joker on purpose. Yeah. And I always... I don't know. I've seen this different ways. I didn't used to see it that way. I used to think that it was just kind of like he shoots the line so that it goes around the thing, and then it's connected to the helicopter. And I always thought that somehow or rather Batman would just figure this would work out okay. I don't know how exactly, but I never thought that it was deliberate, where he's trying to be mean, I'm gonna connect this up to the helicopter so that he'll just fall down and die. But then maybe so. I don't know.
In my head, what it used to be anyway, was that Batman made this connection between his foot and the gargoyle because he thought that the Joker would let go or not be able to hold on to the ladder, and then he'd just slap into the side of the building and hang there.
And it would, maybe it would knock him out or something, but it wouldn't kill him, probably.
Yeah, he would just be hanging there because the gargoyle wouldn't come away from the building.
Yeah, how would you expect that? So, but instead he was just an idiot and held on to the frickin' ladder. Yeah, I mean, the Joker pretty much killed himself, right?
Yeah, I mean,
just by being stupid. Why did he do that?
I mean, if I were a person that was thinking, I'm going to attach this guy to a gargoyle and see that gargoyle come off,
and you're going to have so many opportunities in your life where you might have that thought process.
If I were to see that gargoyle come off the building, the thing I would say would be, "Holy crap!" Did not intend for that to happen.
I should have let go of this ladder long ago.
Well, I mean, if I was Batman,
I see.
I'd be like, oh, oops. Did not intend to do that.
Okay, so is this kind of strange that the that the mayor and the district attorney and everybody decide, we're going to start putting up the bat signal and let Batman help us out because he dropped the guy to his death?
Yeah.
Is that a little bit strange? Like, Batman won simply... I mean, it was pretty circumstantial, right?
Well, here's the deal. For me, is I think it's perfectly okay because all of these people just lived through attempted mass murder.
Well, that's true. So they don't really care how it happened.
Like, Batman, you kill as many people as you need to, as long as they're not bad, or not as long as they're not innocent people.
And it doesn't matter how it went down because they know Batman was involved and they couldn't stop it. And one of the things I like is that we saw them try to stop it.
Yeah,
like we actually do see like at least the district attorney attempting things. Not much. I mean, they don't really go in depth with it, but I'm just saying, at least the police are kind of sort of involved, but they are played up as pretty incompetent because, Batman has to win, and it has to be Batman that does it.
Yeah,
it definitely is a very flawed movie. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's got a lot of problems, but I don't know, it's hard for me to care that much because it's so much fun to watch. I don't know.
That's why Dark Knight's such a great movie, is because it's a movie that covers its bases. I mean, it's like you're not going to sit there and wonder what the government did while Batman was trying to help, and you're not going to sit there wondering what Batman did that. Well, what makes Batman the character that he is while these people are desperately trying to help? Like, why would he operate outside the law? But
I feel almost more validated in loving this movie as much as I do now that Begins and Dark Knight got made because we finally have the serious franchise that delves into that character, and so we have both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Roger Ebert used to complain about this movie and all the Batman movies up until Begins. And by the way, he gave Begins and Dark Knight 4 out of 4. He would complain that he knows that this is a character that could. That we could, look really deeply into, that he's the most interesting comic book character, and we haven't gotten that yet, and that irritates him. And then finally we get the franchise that does it, and I'm like, see, we can have both, Mm-hmm. We can have both. This movie's about the money shots. You get to the end and it's Batman staring off, standing on top of a building. It's a comic book. That's what you wanted at this point.
Yeah. Personally, I would never go to Tim Burton and be like, "Can you make a drama for me?" It's not something.
Neither would I.
It never would have crossed my mind to go to Tim Burton and ask for a drama. Like, everything he does is a little tongue in cheek. I mean. Extremely. It never would have crossed my mind to go say, "Hey, you did Edward Scissorhands. Can you make a really serious Batman movie for me?" I mean, of course that
Tim
guy's
Burton, would you make Long Halloween?
Yeah. As it turns out, Christopher Nolan did a good job of that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people have said that. Or not a lot of people, but Schumacher said when he did Batman Forever that what he really wanted to do was Batman Year One. And he was hired to do a somewhat more lighthearted Batman. And I think if you look at Schumacher's other work, he does do dramas.
Yeah.
And
Schumacher hasn't done terrible movies. I mean,
not for the most part.
Phone Booth was a solid flick.
Phone Booth's a great movie. Yeah, exactly. He knows how to do character dramas. It's just that people have complained a lot about Batman and Robin, and they don't. I think a lot of people don't realize that that was sort of mandated, and he was given an assignment and he fulfilled it. And that was the thing with that movie. And I don't mean to talk too much about Schumacher. I'm just saying that prior to Batman and Robin, if you would go to Schumacher before you would go to Burton to make a drama about Batman. Yeah. That's the only reason I brought that up.
That's the thing is that after I saw Phone Booth, I was like, well, that was really solid. I wonder who made that. I looked it up. I went, oh my god. Joel Schumacher is a talented guy.
Sure, yeah. And he's made other movies I don't like. The number 23 was kind of all over the place.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that too. I haven't seen that one.
It's not terrible, but it's a little all over the way. Again, it has third act syndrome to the max. Jim Carrey turned in a great performance, but
I like Jim Carrey.
Me too.
I think he's a great choice for the Riddler.
I think I mean, he's got a lot of versatility. He can do all kinds of different stuff. We had to get him past his giant heyday before we could realize that he had such a, I think you pretty much had to get to the Truman Show before he got to really stretch his legs as an actor.
I think there are a lot of actors like that. I think that like George Clooney, as popular as he's been for his entire career, I think George Clooney is one of those people that he was a pretty face until they realized he was a really good actor. Now, maybe it's because these people needed to grow and become better actors before they could really be cast in things that wasn't just, I'm a funny guy for Jim Carrey or I'm a pretty face for George Clooney.
These days, credits are way longer than this.
Yeah, I was just thinking, that's really short.
It's like we're already toward the end.
See, everybody needed credit nowadays, but back then they're like, I don't care. Like, today, the guy that brought the director a sandwich that one weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, thanks everybody for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast this week, and we'd love to hear your comments on this. This is a new thing for us. We're planning on doing more of these, so I hope you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think. Let us know if you watched it by itself or if you watched it while watching the movie, and tell us if you were able to get through it. Not watching the movie if you didn't watch the movie, and if it still worked out okay.
And what movies would you guys like to see us do?
Absolutely, yeah, make suggestions, because we're going to do some superhero stuff, but we'll do other things too. So, thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
We'll talk to you next time.